Hello, hello, my Let's Keep It Real people. Okay, we've been talking about this a lot recently, and I said, hold on, don't worry. I have somebody that I think can answer a lot of your questions. I did not realize how many questions we had in the mental health department, but Dr. Nghi is here, and hopefully we can get to a few of them. But before I bring him on, let me just tell you a little bit about him. He is a family medicine physician with over a decade of experience. He's married, lives in California, and has two beautiful little girls. And the most important thing is he is an advocate for mental health starting at home. Now, before we get into it, I always ask all my guests, if you could say just one word that best describes your past 30 days, what word would come to mind and why would you pick it?
First of all, thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure. And as for the word, I would say resilience. The last month has been tough for our family. We all of us got COVID for the first time. Then my wife and the kids got RSV. My wife got RSV, and I'm sick now. So it's been a struggle for the past 30 days for us.
Thank you for your honesty, because so many people think, oh, they have to just say a positive word, but it doesn't have to be. They want to hear what's really going on. So you probably thought, oh my gosh, we haven't gotten COVID in like 2.5 years. We're free. And then bam.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that work as a doctor? Can you do virtual visits or you just have to stay home?
Yeah, I'm a family doctor, so they allow us to have the option if you're feeling well enough, you can do virtuals instead of going to clinic and also exposing everybody, and then just finish your quarantine with your virtuals, and then once you're done, then you come back to clinic.
Okay. So, Dr. Nghi, this subject, when I brought it up to my listeners, there were a million questions from everyone, not just for the middle school kids, which you've written
Yeah.
a lot of amazing short stories. I love the books. We'll get into that. But it was all over the place. And I don't know if you found this, but especially in the last few years, I feel like more people are willing to talk about it.
Mhm.
Have you found that with your patients when they come in? Are more people willing to tell you not just about the physical, but about their mental issues? Health issues. I don't know how you refer to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the inciting incidents for me to start writing my book is to realize that there's such an uptick in mental health visits in the last few years since COVID. I think with COVID, it basically just unmasked our underlying stress, and mental health was more brought to the forefront because we
Okay.
were kind of forced to, since people were scared. I mean, even medical providers were scared when the pandemic first hit. We're worried for our own health, we're worried about our family. So I mean, it's a lot of um, not knowing and
Yeah.
seeing what will happen. I mean, it brought so much fear to everybody. And then it'll trigger your anxiety, your stress, your sleep. And then once sometimes you feel like there's no end, and people become depressed. So I think it kind of just peel back all the protective layers, and then all the mental health side came out.
Yeah. That way, because there's so many different theories, about why do we have more issues. The main one I get, my friends are like, that's just because you put us all together. And right there, it
Possibly too.
causes stress. Who was it? If somebody really, I don't, one of the spiritual leaders says, whenever you think you're enlightened, go visit your family for a week. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
I don't know who said it, but it's true. All right. So your big thing, though, so you started seeing it over and over again. You want to advocate for it starting at the home. So does that mean that you help parents understand what's going on with themselves and the kids, or mostly the kids?
I'm a family physician, so oftentimes I see the kids and the parents, like they're all,
Okay.
sometimes the grandparents, like the whole family is my patients. So then, that happens quite often because I like a whole family, like I know everybody in the family because they're all my patients. So,
That's cool.
yeah, so it's a cool experience. I'm able to get insight on the kids' perspective, the parents' perspective, the grandparents'
Mm.
perspective, and each at each stage in your life you have different concerns and different stresses and different things that cause you angst. So I kind of, if they're having any quarrel, I kind of help guide them to understand what's going on with the other parties in the family.
So one of the biggest questions, and I want to just come right out of the gate with it, that I got is mental health is such a broad term. It's such a big term. So they wanted me to ask you, when you say mental health issues or mental health concerns, what does that mean to you?
For me, mental health is actually the core of your health. I think if you don't have your mental health together, it's hard to have your physical health, because if your mind is very, very powerful tool. I think if you can't
Mhm.
control your mind and get that kind of strain away, it's hard to have your physical health in order. So for me, I think mental health
Mm,
is at the core of your health.
I like that. And do you think that, well, I guess it depends, but are there still stigmas around, oh, you should be able to do that on your own? Or do you find that more people are open to, like, hey, I could use some help here?
I still think there's still a significant stigma around mental health.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of talked about this before. I think people kind of separate mental health and physical health as like two different entities,
Mm,
when really they're just your overall health, which is composed of your mental health and your uh, physical health. It's kind of like your intelligence, your EQ and your IQ. I mean, they're separate, but really it determines you as a whole, right?
I'm so glad to hear you say this, Doc, because for years, and I say not a doctor, but was in the health club industry, so I went to health clubs my whole life. And for me, the physical fitness was just a vehicle for the mental. And I couldn't understand how people separated the body, mind, and spirit. It was all one.
Yeah.
And even years and years ago, I realized the reason I got so much success with my clients physically is because of the mental. I broke down, the mental blocks and found out how they ticked and worked. And that's why the physical came along. Like, it went hand in hand.
Mhm.
And that's why I couldn't understand the big hairy deal. Like, okay, you'll go to physician for your body, but not your brain. It's all the same thing. And maybe if they just looked at it differently,
Mhm.
they wouldn't put such a blockade up.
Yeah.
So in with your clients, do you recommend often that they see therapist or psychiatrist? Or are you able to help them mostly yourself?
Um, I mean, we, as a family medicine physician, we do practice a wide range of medicine. So we do, prescribe medication. We do work with them closely too. But the limitation is a time. So we don't have as much time with them. So
Mm,
we're not able to really give them therapy. So we do recommend
gotcha.
that they go see a therapist, because it's hard to squeeze in time for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. This is a big question, and it's for the middle school kids. How, I'm going to try to word it in a nice way because they bombarded me with this.
Sure,
How do
sure.
you feel about giving middle school kids medicine for mental health issues? And I know it's a big, wide question, but
Mhm.
I got so many questions on that.
Yeah, so I think it based. it's based on the severity of symptoms. I think with anything in life, there's no well, anything in medicine, there's no like clear black and white. If you have this, you do this, you have it, you don't. And then just like in autism, it goes on a spectrum, right? On the
Yes,
severity.
yeah.
Just because you're have mild autism and you're still functioning fine and you have no deficits, then there's nothing that needs to be intervened really. But if you have
Mhm.
high deficits, then obviously something needs to be done. Kind of same with mental health. If it's just mild, then you can get therapy. There's cognitive behavioral treatment that you can
Mm.
get as well. So there's a wide range of treatment, but based on everything's kind of based on severity. If they're like so severe that it's affecting their daily life, they're not able to perform in school, they just want to stay home, they're crying all the time, or they're failing out of school. And obviously, at that time, I think medication is definitely warranted because, like I said, it's kind of on a spectrum, seeing how severe you are. I'm not saying that everybody needs to be on medicine, but if you kind of weigh the risks and benefits with medicine for all conditions, whether it's mental health or not, I think.
I love that. I love that. And by the way, you didn't know this, but my son, who's off to college, to art school, he is on the autism spectrum. But again, you may not know it if you
Mhm.
meet him, it's more of a social thing.
Yeah.
So his was handled through mild medicine, family practitioner, and therapy, you know? And I never thought of now till the analogy of mental health. It's the same thing with him. You say you have autism. Well, there's a spectrum,
Yeah.
you know, and how you deal with it is so individual. And I'm so glad that you're doing that. All right, let's jump into, you say it starts at home. So as far as parents, is it having open conversations with their kids? Is that what you mean by it starts at home?
Yeah, I think it's so important that parents kind of start that conversation early. So my whole thing about mental health is we should be proactive with our mental health just like our physical health, right? Like we
Yeah,
exercise, we trying to get fit. So we should do the same thing for our mental health. And we don't want to wait until something happens for us to kind of have that discussion. You don't want to wait for some
yeah,
tragic event to happen and you lost your family member to suicide or something like that before you start talking to your family about it.
yeah,
I think it's so important to have that discussion. You hear so many stories with parents who are kind of shocked that their kids commit suicide, they're caught off guard,
yeah,
and a lot of it's because they never really talk about it. So then you don't have the that opportunity to bring it up if they if mental health was talked more about at home, maybe we can avoid some of those tragic events where we talk about it before something happens or before it gets so severe that they are so closed off they can't talk about
mm,
it. If you talk about it early on, um, the kids can feel more comfortable discussing it with their parents
yeah.
before something else tragic happens. I think they feel like, oh, my parents talked to me about it, so it's okay for me to talk to them about it because they don't seem like it's
Yeah.
some weird topic. I don't feel uncomfortable. But if you never talk about it with your kids, I think even me growing up, I think I would feel really uncomfortable talking to my parents about my mental health because I feel like they're like, why are you talking about this? Right. So I think if the parents can open that dialogue with them, like, hey, this is signs and symptoms of such and such. If you have those, let me know, and kind of give them more solid examples. And they may be like, okay, why are we talking about this? I'm fine, but maybe in the future, if they're not fine, then they can remember, oh yeah, I had that conversation with my parents.
I love that idea because you're right. If you start it younger, then it's not as what I call a big hairy deal, and they
Yeah,
feel more comfortable coming to you. And they think of it the same way they think of, hey, my wrist is feeling weird. Can I go to the doctor? They're not as, they're more likely to come to you with that. Now, that being said, kids are kids, and there are times, like you said, they'll be
yeah,
like, why are you talking to me like this? I don't want to talk. I'm listening to my music, but at least they know you're there.
yeah,
So that was another question I got, that now maybe these kids are older too, that a lot of the parents feel they bring up and they were like, Mom, I don't want to talk about this with you. Or Dad, I don't want to talk
Mm.
about this with you. And what do you
Yeah.
do then when you think something's wrong? Do you just put them in the car and take them to the doctor? I mean, what do you do then when they don't want to admit anything?
Yeah, for those situations, I think fortunately now there's a lot of third parties or even through the insurance they have virtual therapy. So I think that would be a easier transition where okay, someone can call you at night, they're gonna just talk to you. We're not gonna take you anywhere. You can do the visit in your room by yourself. You close the door or whatever it may be. I think the virtual aspect of mental health has greatly improved. I think that's easier for to segue. Maybe they get used to the virtual appointments. They're willing to go actually see the therapist in person. Um, I mean, I think with older kids, I think it takes baby steps. You don't want to kind of make such a big drastic push that they will close out completely. So I think most kids are like, oh, someone can call you at 9 o'clock and just talk to you. You can share what you feel. Most kids are like, okay, yeah, whatever, fine,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
No one's gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna pick up that phone call. Yeah.
That's true. Do you see a difference in the benefits between in-person and virtual? Because I know a few of my friends, they said some of the kids, they love virtual and some of them are like, no way, they won't open up unless they're in person.
Yeah, I mean, again, it kind of depends on the kids, and it also depends on the person on the other end. I think if they're very adept at virtual care, they kind of know how to
Mm.
get them to open up a little bit more.
Good
But
point.
I think if you're gonna compare virtual to in person, I think in person is always gonna be better.
Yeah, yeah. But I understand what you're saying. If the person on the other end is more relaxed and used to doing virtual,
Mhm.
then it makes the patient more relaxed.
Yeah.
All right. So the subject of bullying. I think everybody can relate to this, but I'd like you to tell a little bit more about your story and your experience coming from Vietnam to California.
Yeah. So my whole family, we immigrated to the States, to California when I was 7. Um, I didn't know a word of English, didn't understand the culture, didn't understand anything about the States. I mean,
Mm,
barely even knew much about the States to begin with. So,
yeah.
and then we were popped in a predominantly like Caucasian community with their like, middle class. So,
I like
I
plopped in. I like plopped in.
so, I stood out like a sore thumb. I didn't understand the culture. I didn't understand what they were talking about. Even like the little nuances, I didn't understand like what's going on. Like I, I think kids generally are accustomed to a certain kind of normalcy, would you
Yeah,
say? And then if something kind of stands out, then you're a
absolutely.
target for bullying. So I stood out. So I was the target for all the bullying.
Oh my God. And so what did your parents say back home? I mean, did you come home and tell them?
I mean, I honestly try not to let them know what's going on much, because I see how much they're struggling to transitioning to the States, trying to figure out their own life and trying to, get a job, take care of us as well. So,
Mm,
and then I see how much my siblings are trying to fit in and trying to learn and try to figure out where they're from as well. So I think I mostly kept it in. I mean, I kind of let them know here and there. Nothing major. I mean, I did let my mom know that I was having trouble in school because I didn't understand anything.
yeah.
So I remember she said, "Oh, okay, bring home your books. Then maybe I can help you, with the books and see, trying to catch you up in class." So I remember, we have school sets, right, of books, and then we put it in our cubby. At the end of the day, they do a book check to make sure all the books are there. But I didn't remember. I remember not knowing how to tell my teacher that I just want to take some of the books home to study. and I'm not gonna steal them. So I ended up putting a couple books in my backpack, and I went to the bus stop. And then I remember the teacher chasing after me. I knew what she was saying, but I didn't understand. I knew she was like, "Hey, you
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
take
yeah.
them home. You gotta put it back." But I couldn't tell her like I don't want to steal them. I just want to take them home so my mom can help me. And then I did. I ran. I felt so frustrated. I started crying, and then she just took the books back, and I just like cried at the bus stop until the bus came.
Oh,
So
God.
yeah, so I was like, man, this is. I remember waiting for a bus. I was like, man, this sucks. I really don't want to be here. Why did we come here?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So how did you get through that? I mean, because I get it, it's a different generation too. And a lot of times I've heard parents say, I didn't even know, like, as the kids got older and they said they were bullied or they had all these frustrations at school, and they're like, we didn't even know, that
yeah,
you were going through that. So what did you do to cope back then? Or did you cope, or was it just miserable?
yeah. I mean, one of the things I kind of relied on was my passion for art. So I kind of got lost in my own art, and when I drew, I felt like I was at peace. Didn't
Yeah,
really think about what's going on at school. I didn't think about what's going on, in my life at that time. I just let my creativity flow, and just those time that I'm drawing or creating, I'm at peace.
yeah, yeah. So you had an outlet.
Hmm.
Some people it might be theater, some people it might be sports. For you, and I've seen it with my son, it's art. When you're drawing, it's very calming, and that's
Hmm.
all you're thinking about right there. Okay, so I hear all the time, doctor, about kids getting bullied. I mean, at every age. And the thing I get asked over and over again, and now keep in mind, most of these are high school kids,
Hmm.
is they don't know what to do about it. Because if they stand up for themselves, let's just say the popular kids are
Uh,
bullying them, then it could get worse. Like whenever they've stood up and said, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that, now they're out of that group. Now they have nowhere to sit. They've escalated it.
hmm.
So advice, what would you tell? And a lot of it that I'm hearing from is not just girls, it's girls and boys.
Yeah. Yeah, bullying, like in my book, at the end, I do have a little blurb, medical blurb about it for each mental health topic. But the study shown that maybe at least 1 out of 5 kids have been bullied,
Yeah,
while they're in school.
absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not something where it's like 1 in 100 kids. So like,
No.
yeah, if you have 5 kids at home, one of them is being bullied. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's not something uncommon. And in terms of bullying, I think a lot of times like I wrote in the book, like when you get bullied, you feel like maybe it might be your fault, and sometimes you feel too embarrassed to tell your parents, or is it too embarrassed to get help. Um, so I think that's one of the major problems with being bullied. I think a lot of it is the the person being bullied kind of blames themselves sometimes,
Right.
instead of realizing that it's nothing they've done. I mean, they're a victim. They're not the cause of that. It's not like they're going out in the middle of the night in New York City and they get robbed. I mean, that's kind of kind of asking, right. They're just going to school. They're not asking to be bullied. They're not doing anything. So I think a lot of times for bullying, I feel like what's going to change that culture if the parents, like I said, kind of talk to the kids at home and have that discussion at home and
Yeah.
say, this is what, if someone's being bullied, if it's not you, you shouldn't stand aside and watch them get bullied, because one day that person being bullied could be you.
Yeah.
So I think if we all kind of have that conversation at home and have the parents kind of instill that in their kids and have everybody unite, because most of the time it's like a handful of bullies, right? It's not like everybody in school is being is bullying each
No,
other.
no, it's usually like 3 to 5. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think if the rest of the class kind of stood up to them and say, "Hey, stop that. That's not nice. That's not cool." then I think that should help the bully culture. But I think what ends up happening with the culture now is that everyone stands aside, gets out their phone and records and lets everything play out. So I think that's why bullying has gotten, I feel like, gotten worse through the years.
Hmm.
Is this culture of like, I'm not involved. I'm not being bullied. I'm not gonna get involved. So I think that's why things kind of escalated. Like no one's has, you don't really see a lot of people or a lot of the kids standing up to bullies.
Yeah. Well, I do agree. I do think that the more and more the other kids rally behind those other ones, right? There's power in numbers and community, it can help. But I do see the other side of it. Like, I don't want to be on the end of that. Like, if I
Yeah.
say something, I'm at the end of it. But even more so, and I really don't know the answer to this. Some of it, it's right in your face and you can see the person's being bullied. But there's other times where they're saying things to someone
Mhm.
because of, insecurities and jealousies or whatever. And it's not as obvious. And a lot of kids are saying, they don't know what to do because if they say something like, you can't treat me like that, or you can't do that, we're talking verbally,
Mhm.
putting them down for whatever reason, it's going to make it more miserable,
Mhm.
for them at school. And I honestly don't have the answer for that.
Yeah. So going back to our kind of severity, I think if it's to a point where it's super severe, I think at that point, that's when you get administration involved
Okay,
and
got
not try to deal with it on your own. But I think if it's not super severe, I think a lot of times, um, kind of parents have to kind of empower their kids to, be um, not self-reliant, but be more confident in themselves
yeah,
and
yeah.
not feel like they're so scared to kind of just respond.
Good point. Good point. So a lot of it has to do with then people, like the kids that have more confidence in themselves and their ability to make
Hmm.
friends and other friends.
Hmm.
And I mean, I get that parents can be a part of it, but I know I've seen where it's tough no matter how much parents are saying you're amazing, you're whatever. The
Hmm.
kids got to know it for themselves,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's a journey.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you know, self-confidence is something that's learned through the years.
Yep.
Um, in one of the books, we talk about grit, which is the ability to dust yourself off after you fail.
Yeah.
For some parents, the difference between kind of verbally telling them they're great and telling them that they're amazing, and
Yeah.
actually letting them feel that way is two different things. Like you can tell your kids, "Oh, you're so amazing, you're so smart, you're so this and that," but they're not let them feel that way. The only way they can feel that way is actually let them learn that they are that way. So how do you do that? It's through actually
Mhm.
allowing them to fail, allowing them to discover that by themselves. I think some parents they don't want to see the kids fail, so they kind of intervene before
Yeah.
anything even
Step in.
happens.
Yeah.
And then so that culture of like kind of preventing them from failing doesn't really give them confidence, even though you're telling them like verbally, they hear it, but they don't feel it. But if you
Mm.
let them actually feel it, like, oh, I failed, but I was able to recover, I practiced and I did it. So that way they actually feel that confidence instead of just hearing that confidence. So it's like two
Yeah.
major, like it's like two big difference. I think verbally telling them, "Oh, you're the best. You won an award, this and that," but if they don't feel like it, there's nothing you can say that will make them feel like it. But
Absolutely.
for them to feel like it, you have to allow them to go through that journey, let them fail, let them recover, let them find their own success. So I think, with grit, one of the psychologist, Dr. Duckworth, she's a big advocate for grit. She's found that the most successful kids are the ones with the most grit, not the ones that are the smartest, not the ones that are the most talented or the most athletic or whatnot,
Agree.
but the ones that actually can just fail, 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 and get up.
By the way, I wish we had time for a whole nother podcast, because I was just in a parent group and they were talking about that. And yes, most parents, of course, you want your kid to be happy and you'd like to protect them, but they get that they have to have their own journey.
Mhm.
And what's the balance of, well, yeah, so-and-so they were saying was successful, but they, grew up in a poverty with one parent and this and that, so that they had no other choice. Well, they have a nice cushy home, and
Yeah.
loving parents and good means. How's my kid going to learn grit? But there's other ways of picking yourself back up besides
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, for those kids who aren't born into poverty and aren't forced to succeed in
Yeah.
order to put food on the table, there are other ways to allow them to develop grit. So, like we talked about, let them explore things they like, let them, try to go, like, be competitive at any kind of level for the things that they
Yeah.
do like. And,
Yeah.
obviously when you become competitive at anything, you will find someone that's better than you. You will be humbled. So that's how you basically develop.
Always.
Yeah, just like me, like I was always like the best artist at school. So, and when I was a kid, I thought I was like the best artist in the world until I got humbled when I started going to competitions and like my like art exhibits where I'm like, oh man, there's still other kids that are way better than me. And that's when you kind of like, be
Yeah.
humble, kind of work hard. I'm like, okay, I gotta keep practicing, work harder because I'm not the best.
Okay. So I have to ask, what made you not go to art school and become a doctor? Or is it always just going to be a hobby for you?
To be honest, I did want to be an artist when I was a kid. Like that was my passion.
Mm-hmm.
But what ended up happening was my older siblings all went into medicine, and I looked up to them growing up. So I was like,
Mm.
okay, maybe I should go into medicine too. But it was still like just a thought. But what solidified it, my want to go to medicine was when we went back to Vietnam for the first time. It was during a winter break and for my first year in college.
Mm.
We went to go visit my grandma because she was really sick. She was basically dying.
Mm.
And then we got there. She was pretty lethargic. She couldn't really talk. She was, pretty out of it. So, um, I kind of prayed. I'm like, oh, please, let her just, be lucid for just a while. I just want to talk to her for one last time and just, give her a hug and say I love her.
Aw.
But she never woke up. I felt so helpless. I felt like, man, maybe if I was a doctor, I knew more, I could help her. I just felt
Mm.
so helpless. I was like, I didn't like. I'm like, I don't want to feel this way. I want to feel like I would know what to do and
Yeah.
know how to help her because I feel like I'm just watching her die. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
kid's stuff. Even I think I was a doctor. There's not much I could have done anyways.
Oh, no, no,
But
I can't.
but but it's that feeling like so helpless, like I just didn't know what to do. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna follow my brother and my sister and go into medicine.
Yeah. Do you still, is art a part of your life at all?
My brother, my sister.
No, is art a part of your life?
Oh, to be honest, uh, I haven't really done much art
Mm.
since college because when I was pre med, I used to worry about trying to get med school, and there's med
Yeah.
school, and residency. I really haven't picked up art until my book series.
Oh, so those are your illustrations.
Yeah, those are my illustrations.
Well, there you go.
yeah, so I
I love them. I love them.
yeah, I didn't really pick up art until my book series because I actually had a real legitimate reason to get back into drawing
Yeah, yeah.
or illustrating. Yeah.
All right, so let's now dive. All right, people, I know I didn't get to all your questions. I'm sure you can reach out to Dr. But let's dive into what was like, okay, I got to write these books. Was it, I know your kids are probably in those, are your kids in this age bracket, or is it mostly about your patients that made you like, I got to do this?
No, my kids are 2 and 4, so they're way young.
Okay.
Yeah. What actually really wanted was the event that triggered me to do this was actually um, losing my nephew to suicide 6 months into the pandemic.
Oh, oh God. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. I remember my mom calling me. I think
Oh,
it was like 11 at night or something. She never calls me 11 at night. She calls me in the daytime.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was like, so I pick up, I'm like, Mom, you okay? She's like, yeah, I'm fine. So I'm like, so I asked her, oh, is Dad okay? She's like, yeah, he's fine. He's sleeping. I was like, okay, why are you calling me? She's like, oh, I just want to let you know, your cousin just called me. He said that his son committed suicide.
Mm,
So I like I was silent for a while, trying to take it in my head. In my head, I thought it was an attempt suicide. So I said, "Oh, okay. Is he in the hospital? You want me to take him to go see him?" She's like, "No, he's dead."
wow.
So I was like, "Wait, what?"
How old was he?
He was 21.
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. So I think at that point, I, I started thinking like, man, it like, you see all these, you know, um, famous people or people in the magazines, lost their
Yeah.
life to
Yeah.
suicide or their loved one suicide, and then now it struck so close to home. That's when I realized the importance of having that conversation at home. Because then I thought about maybe if his parents had that conversation with him long, long time ago, it wouldn't have led him to a point where he thought that the only way to end his problem would be suicide.
Mm,
So I think that's when I really was determined to do something to have that dialogue at home, have parents
yeah.
talk to
Yeah.
their kids and have the be it something that's no more normal and have that conversation instead of something that's really awkward and feels uncomfortable to have
Yeah.
that conversation.
Yeah. I love that. I'm all about, I call them like guidebooks,
Yeah.
because it makes it, when I was looked up all your books, which they have to go to your website. We'll tell them about that. I'm thinking this makes it more relaxed and fun to have these difficult conversations. And it's all about the adventures of Max and his friends. And I love that each one is like the first day of school, grit and hard work. Like they all have the new kid change, that you all have a theme for each one of them. And I know you still have more coming out, don't you?
Yeah, I have 8 in total, so 6 are out. We have 2 more coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And why Max? Why the adventures of Max?
Yeah, basically, the stories of Max are and his other friends are basically a accumulation of my own stories and my own struggles,
Oh,
and then the struggles of and the stories of my patients that kind of stuck with me through the years.
yeah.
So basically, I'm trying to give them a voice. I'm taking their stories and bringing it to give them a voice so they can share their stories with other kids that can relate to them because all the stories are actually, I mean, they're obviously modified, but they're based on true events. So they're not completely made up. So I think that's why it's more relatable because it did really happen and
Yeah. Yeah.
not precisely, but
Yeah.
took some creative liberties. But obviously, they're all based on real stories and real events
Mm,
and the emotions and the feelings are real emotions and feelings that were
yeah.
invoked at the time. So that's why I wanted to share their stories and share my stories with other kids that are struggling and feel like they don't have anyone that understands them or connects to them. So hopefully
Yeah,
these stories can help them see that they're not alone.
yeah, yeah. So it's the same thing that with your books that I saw with my journal. When I sent my journal to people for their kids, a lot of the older kids were using it, you know what I mean? The high school, college, and the parents. These stories are so relatable that I could just even seeing the parents start healing from reading like the stories.
Yeah,
Because like it's like you said, they're real. I mean, you
yeah,
can feel that. And I get you took creative liberties. I accidentally got put into a fiction book writing group, and I'm nonfiction. And what I realized, yeah, they're fiction because then you don't have to do all the fact checks, but most of them are based on their own life.
yeah.
You know, they just are able to take liberties with it. Okay. So I do want to stay with, I didn't get to go into all the questions, but they would like recommendations if their child is having what they feel mental health issues and they're not opening up to them. Would you first start with their family practitioner? I want to make sure I get that in because that's another question I got over and over again. Where will you start?
Yeah, I think if you have any concerns about your kids, I think have them go see their family doctor or the pediatrician, depending on the age, and have them start there. I think that's probably the best starting point. I think if they have a good relationship with their pediatrician or the family doctor, they're more likely to open up to them as opposed to their parents.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so I think that's a good starting point to let them go and see their primary care provider. I think that's, and then the provider can kind of do the assessment, see what what they may need going further.
yeah, yeah. So I know I'm going to send people to your website, but each of these short stories, these books, how long do they take to go through and read with a child?
I think if you just read like a normal pace, each book takes about 15 minutes, 20 minutes at the most. So they're short stories, so they're meant to
Yeah,
be read at one sitting. Um, but I think the books, if you read it a couple times, each time you probably will glean some different
yeah,
message from it. So, but like I said, in terms of just reading speed, probably 15, 20
yeah,
minutes at the most.
yeah. Yeah, to me, it's a starting off point, and it's a guidebook. You can pick it up. You know, it's not like, okay, this is just a story you read one time. Like, keep it
Yeah,
there and go over and over again. Well, Dr. Nate, I'm so grateful you came on, and I'm grateful that you came on, even though you're not feeling great. I mean, I really appreciate that. I hope you feel
no
better
problem.
soon too, because I know that's not fun. But before we go, tell them where they can find your books or you.
Sure. You can find my books or contact me on my website, the www.theadventuresofmaxandfriends.org, or
Okay.
you can go the Adventures of Max and Friends, and my website should come up. You can ask questions on there if you still have questions that are burning questions you haven't been answered yet. So you can communicate with me through on the website as well. And then it has all my books and when they're released and how you can purchase them.
All right, my Let's Keep It Real people. Dr. Nate, I would really appreciate you sharing this, rating this, like it. I know there's going to be somebody that could benefit from this podcast. And you know what I'm going to say? Until next time, toodles. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.